Hello everyone, this is Michael Murphy, and I am a Senior Cloud Solution Architect with Hewlett-Packard, and today I'm going to help out, and I'm going to do a video series for Code RGV, my local hackathon, in order to kind of detail the beginning learnings for a systems administrator position and kind of like a Linux support role for a multitude of type of companies. And to do that, really, we got to do a couple of things to get set up for a personal lab or a personal environment on our home computers. And the intent of these videos is really to kind of focus on how to repeatably teach yourself and follow a couple of instructional articles and videos in order to be able to practice installing a LAMP stack, how to get a content management system such as WordPress or Joomla installed onto a single VM. And then, as well as being able to perform some common systems administrator tasks, and I hope to continue with a couple of videos after that go over more advanced concepts like Bash scripting, utilizing OpenStack, utilizing the OpenStack Python tools as well. But before we can get to any of that, really what we have to be able to do is to have a VM on our personal desktop, be it Mac, Linux, or Windows, and be able to quickly set one up and tear one down in order to repeat training tasks again and again and again. And really the best way to do this is to install a program called VirtualBox onto our computer. And so you can go ahead and Google VirtualBox. And go ahead and hit the download for VirtualBox. Most of you will probably be using a Windows x86 for Windows. If you've got OS X, that's fine. Works cross-platform, so it really doesn't matter where you are, what system you want to use. So you want to go ahead and download and install that. You can see myself, I already have it downloaded and installed. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to need a Linux ISO. For the intensive training, there's several distros and several varying reasons to use them. For training, because most of the really relevant certifications are based around RHEL or Red Hat, such as the Red Hat Certified Systems Administrator certification and the Red Hat Certified Engineer, we're really going to focus on CentOS first. Personally, Ubuntu is my favorite distro. I really like it better for a desktop operating environment. It's a lot more visual, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot simpler, and it's not so staged in individual steps. But for our training purposes and just for ease of starting our lab training and starting to get set up to take our Red Hat Certified Systems Administrator test, we're going to go ahead and start with CentOS. Now, I recommend you go ahead and go to CentOS.org first. What we need to do is we need to get a minimal install of CentOS. We don't need the GUI. This is a sysadmin course, so it's based on CLI. And it's just a waste anyways. What we definitely want is just the command line version of CentOS in order to stand up and tear down repeatedly. So go ahead and just click the Get CentOS Now button, and then down here under the minimal install issues, hit download the minimal ISO. From there, whatever link you want to go ahead and it'll start the download. You can see already I have the ISOs downloaded on my, this is an Ubuntu ISO and this is a CentOS ISO, and you'll see they're relatively small compared to most OS ISOs would be 4 to 5 gigs. These are only 579 megs. Takes a lot less time to install than a full head system. This is what you would call a headless system. In the concept of it, it doesn't have a GUI. It's meant to be administered in in a totally remote environment. So at this point, really all we need to do is go to CentOS. Once your download completes, then what we're going to do is we're going to set up our first VM. Now I already have a VM set up, but I'm going to go through the steps of showing you just a real simple, quick and easy on how to set up your VirtualBox and create your first VM. To which after we're going to go ahead and clone that VM. Okay. So in the first create your virtual machine, go ahead and select type Linux and Red Hat 64-bit. It doesn't have a CentOS option. Red Hat and CentOS is the same thing, except that Red Hat uses an enterprise license, and the CentOS is just the free version with all of the Red Hat, naming and branding changed to CentOS. And so we're going to type this, just test for right now, but name it whatever you feel appropriate. Now, because this is a headless system and it's a CLI only version, it's called the server version of of CentOS, we don't need a lot of RAM. Typically, if you were using VirtualBox to create like a secondary OS X or Windows operating environment, you'd need 2-3 gigs of RAM, even 4 and 5. But because it's just a simple CLI VM, you really don't need a lot more than 256. So I'm just going to throw 512 at this image. On your first creation, you're just going to go ahead and create a virtual hard drive. This is where it stores the data for the VM. And what VirtualBox is called a hypervisor. And what it does is it cuts your main computer into smaller pieces in order to virtually run another operating system. So leave it just at VDI. Go ahead and leave it on dynamically allocated. And then we're going to go ahead and squeeze it up to about 10 gigs, again because we're only going to be installing a couple of packages for the intents of these labs and demos. We don't really need a lot of space. Now it'll go ahead and create your first VM. After you create it, just go ahead and click Start. And from there, you're really just going to go ahead, and I have it in my drop down, but you're just going to browse to the location of your ISO. And so however you have to, just to browse to the location of the ISO that you downloaded, and then hit Open. From there, you just hit Start. From there, go ahead and hit Install CentOS 7. Now with VirtualBox, when you click in the window, it's gonna take over command of your mouse inside the wing, because it's inside the VM window, because it's the active session. You just select right control, and it'll let you out, so you can use your mouse inside of your host system. You'll have a host operating system and a guest operating system. It's going to be these annoying errors about non-mouse integration because of the fact that you're installing a CLI version, but that's fine, just click them off. You're just going to give this a minute or so to launch its init scripts and go ahead and get ready to install CentOS. Shouldn't take too much longer to get into it. Just a few more moments and we should be able to continue. Alright then, so now it's loaded just the very simple user input option of the first install. Leave this at English, hit continue. Now sometimes the mouse control will get really weird. You can use your tab navigation and enter to get through anything that you can't really click with your mouse. It's only going to want us to go ahead and change one important thing before we begin the installation. That's just to select the partition we want to install on. So you just click the installation, that part that I just clicked on right here, and click done, and it just leaves it at all the default settings, which is to format the entire disk, which is what we want. We don't have any need to set up crazy partitions in the beginning, and you can always do that after the OS install, so that's fine. We are going to click to set up a root password, and we're just going to these systems won't be production systems. You know, it's good practice to use strong passwords and, you know, in all systems administration things, because this is lab stuff. I'm just choosing something easy to remember. But as I said, if you were doing this in a sysadmin thing, you would definitely want to be using either PEM files for authentication, or you would probably want to use really long and strong passwords. Also, let's go ahead and create an individual system user. And this is just because you should do things as a user and not as root. You know, that's what they taught me when I started. I don't even know really the reason why. I think it's something security minded, but that's fine. Go ahead and just type in, you know, your name or whatever you want your username to be. Make this user administrator. Give it your testing password. And hit done. From here, it's just going to take about 10 to 12 minutes, hopefully not a lot longer, to install that, which is fine. But with the magic of science, I've already got powered up a done and finished installed VM that I'm going to do. So once this finishes, all it's going to do is it's going to give you a reboot now button that you will click, and from that intents and purposes, I don't need this one anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and power it down. You will leave it alone. You'll wait until it finishes installing. You'll hit the reboot now button, and then from there you will only need to wait until it reboots. And the system is going to come up and do this. Go ahead and hit enter. Drop these down, wait for the OS to boot. And we just want to do one thing before we clone in order to save ourselves time in the concept of testing the environments. The first thing you do when you get onto a box is you run a command called yum update, and what that does is it updates all of the internal repositories of your Linux VM or your Linux OS. Now we want updated repositories just because we want to be installing the most current software, even though it's not really important for testing purposes, but it's good to get into the habit of it for the purposes of you know, production. It's very easy to log in once you've clicked into the window. Go ahead and just type in your password, your username, or for the intents and purposes of this, we're just going to use root. Give your password that you defined when you're installing the OS, and then you know, first thing we're going to do is just go ahead and give it a yum update. Now, this can take a little bit of time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to see here, depending on the... Well, this is CentOS 7, so I don't know if they've done a lot of updates from the root of the OS. We'll give it 2 seconds here to see. If it looks like it's going to go ahead and take a long time, I'm just going to cancel it. Because I don't care if my repos are up to date right now, but you would want to go ahead and update your repos. $2.6K a second. Dang. Their repo servers must be getting hit pretty hard right now. I see. Linux switched. Linux can do that because it understood that repo, or the server, the mirror that it was getting the updates in the repos from, was going real slow, so it switched to what? So it wants to download 91 megs and install it. I'm going to tell it no. I would recommend you give it a yes, just for the intents of letting it go through. This is all lab stuff to me. I've done it a bazillion times, so you don't have to worry about me. But go ahead and let your yum update complete before you shut down your system. And then once your yum updates are complete, I want you to go ahead and shut down the system. So just click type a command, shut down, hit the red X, power off the machine, powered off. And at this point, this is where we want to be. We've got one VM that has been configured and our yum update gone through. So this is the most time-consuming processes. I would say that process in general takes about 35 to 45 minutes. We don't want to do that again and again in order to practice and tear down and restand up. So we want to get those things out of the way once, and then from there we're just going to go ahead and clone this image so we can get a mirrored image of that to use again and again. So you go ahead and just right-click the VM that you created and hit clone, and then just hit CentOS clone maybe 1. Ask to reinitialize the MAC address of all the network cards when you reboot it. Make it a full clone. Go ahead and hit clone. And it's going to clone the CentOS2.bdi disk image, which is awesome because as soon as you use up one of your VMs, and let's say when we go into training and we go into some of the labs and stuff that we're going to do, I'm going to just jump on one right now and show you how to install Apache. Super simple. But as we go through a full lab, install Apache, install a full LAMP stack, and maybe get WordPress up and running, then we want to be able to delete that VM, go to our next cloned VM, and start again without any downtime, and be able to repeat our steps and get used to doing them. The first couple of times that we do them, we're probably going to be using instruction sets from the knowledge bases that are available on a variety of cloud websites that have step-by-step guides on how to install certain things like cPanel and WordPress and Joomla, or just normal Google instructions. And so once we've determined and followed the instructions for one, we're going to go ahead and kill it. We're going to try to remember some of it from memory on the next one, looking up whatever we need to do, and then kill that, and we're just going to kind of repeat and repeat and repeat until we have to look at less and less documentation. Now when you find yourself needing less and less documentation to set up a web server, you're starting to become pretty comfortable in the systems administration roles and abilities. To be honest, every sysadmin, regardless of skill set or abilities, has to look some things up. Even the best, still Google. We still, reflect back to our notes or aliases or other documentation and forums, so that's fine. So you can see that we've created one clone, which means that these are two independent systems. You can make 3 or 4 copies, that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything, and that way you can just go ahead and manage and hop back and forth between systems. So now I'm just going to go ahead and start the first system that we created. Before I pause this video in order to upload it and create the next one, which we're going to go a little bit more detailed about a web stack and about configuring Apache and what Apache is, I just want to show a quick installation of an important piece of Linux software. So we're going to start this VM, we're going to start it up, we're going to let it go. Click inside our window, give our user, give our pass, and we are logged into our system. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a couple of the quick commands that you need to be able to use, and you might need to reference this video back. You might want to definitely go ahead and write these commands down because they are going to be your go-to bread and butters. And the first go-to bread and butter is called ls. If you are familiar with Windows and using DOS, the command in DOS would have been dir. In fact, CentOS has an alias that aliases the command dir to ls. So you can use them interchangeably, which is a bad practice. You should forget all about Windows and forget that it exists, if you're going to be a true Linux neckbeard. But for learning, that's fine. So if you forget and you gotta go to dir, it's okay. But a lot of the existing Windows commands, even if they were similar, they're probably going to be in a different format in Linux. So ls is your most important one, and man is probably your second most important one. And what ls does is it lists the content of a directory. So the current directory that we're in is /root, and I use the command pwd, which stands for print working directory, to give me the current working directory that I'm in. And then ls is listing the contents of /root. And it takes a little while to kind of get used to a command line environment and what that entails and what gets into it, but you know, it becomes pretty natural. And when you start using the advantages of it, the advantage of it is that you can easily, you know, administer many headless remote systems, as well as the fact that, you know, in systems administration, you really don't, I can't use a mouse, and you don't need a mouse, and the less that you know, move your hand away from your keyboard to a mouse, the more productive you are. You're faster at typing than you are at clicking and manipulating graphical objects. It's just a true statement. So if you were to watch a Windows admin versus a Linux admin, you know, troubleshoot a box and fix a box, you'd be really surprised by, you know, by the ability of them to fix more boxes and quicker, just because of the fact that they don't have to click and drag and drop and you know, use graphical interfaces. So ls is your most important command. Your second most important command is going to be man, and that stands for manual. And manual will give you information on any existing bash command, because what Linux uses is bash. It's a shell. It's a version of shell. There's different types of shells, and that's way above and kind of down the line. But man, in preface to any command, will give you user documentation. It'll open it up in a program called VI, and it'll give you user documentation on that command. And I really recommend reading these top to bottom for every command, you know, that you use commonly, because you may not even know some of the things that command can do. For example, it's giving us a flag here, which is /a or -a, which gives us information on. I'll show you. Which gives us attributes, or a list of all of the information. So you can see in that first command I give is ls, and this is with no flags, no attributes, no values. What I'm doing is I'm just getting a list of files that are in this directory. With an ls-la, I'm getting a lot more. I'm seeing hidden files, which are those files predated with a dot. So just like in Windows has system files, Linux has, you know, hidden files. I am seeing the attributes, the permissions, apologies, the permissions of a file, which are notated by these dr, w, xr, xr. So that's read, write, execute, and directory. And it shows which flags are turned on for the world writable, user writable, and group writable, which is the 3 attribute flags that a Linux file has. And what that means is, and whether it's executable or not, that means what the world can see, meaning like from outside the box, which is internet and, you know, web browsers. And then individually to a group, what a group can see, any user inside of a group, and then a specific user, or the local user that owns the file. And how you can tell who owns the file is the next category, which says right now root, and that means that file is owned by the root user. Users are pretty important. Who owns a file has to do with who owns a file is relatively important. Sometimes if a web page isn't working and you can't see it and you're getting a 404, it could be a user error. There's a bazillion different things that user errors are going on, and we'll get further and further into that, but just know that information specifies which user either created or then owns that file. And you can easily change that information with a command called chown, which stands for change owner. You also have timestamp, size, date, you know, and the information on the file. So ls-la is probably your most useful command. It'll be your most used command. Learn it, live it, love it. If you just want to look at information inside of the directory, that's fine and good. And as I said, the next most important, pwd, also very important. You know, in case you get lost, or if you're copying something and you're getting an error, or you just can't figure out why something isn't working, check that you're in the right directory. I mean, you know, that's just very important to make. You know, sometimes you get lost and you change around directories, and you just don't know where you are. Check that you're in the right directory with pwd. Your next most important command, cd, and you should remember this from the days of Windows and DOS. CD is really easy. It's change directory. You can go ahead and give commands CD prefaced by a path. A path is a location of a file. So we can go ahead and make a directory real quick. Make dir directory. Make dir creates a directory, which means a folder. And now when I ls-la, it gives me a blue indication that says that, hey, that's a directory. So we can type in cd directory, and we get into our directory. We can go ahead and cd into cd/var/logs /var first, and then let's look for log, and we have the log information that's on our Linux system. I'm going to teach you a really cool command that's far and above beyond what we'll get to in later series, but this is a really cool directory because it is the logging information for the system. So most logs come through here. This command is awesome and will save you a lot of headache. It's called tail-f *** in a log directory, right? And so what we're doing is we're saying display the last 10 lines of anything that's of any files that get modified or updated. So what's going on here is you're in the log folder. The log folders track all the things that are going on in the system. Now, anytime any of those changes, it's all veritable, a plethora of troubleshooting information. And if you want to watch that stuff happen live, throw a tail-f, which means look at the last 10 lines, and then ***. Now, you can look at an individual one, but when I don't even know what I'm looking for, I just go ahead and give a ***, and that means wildcard.wildcard. So it means read everything. And from there, you will see anytime anything happens on the system, you will be updated in this window. And you can create a new window or screen or do whatever else you need, but you can watch as you type commands anything that happens on the system. It'll actually show you what's going on at the system, give you errors, give you information, give you whether disk is being accessed or memory is being accessed. So it's a really handy troubleshooting tool. And then if we go ahead and do a pwd, we see that we're in the var log directory. Well, that's awesome. Now, if we want to go back to the var folder, we go ahead and use cd .. This takes us one directory up. So we can go into cd run, that's fine, and list the directory of that content. We can go cd dot or cd .. and go one directory up. Apparently in CentOS 7, cd .. also takes you up one directory, or does it? No, it just takes you to the same directory. I guess the root directory then. So we can go ls-la and get our information, pwd and cd. These are your bread and butter. Understand these commands. Look at the wiki platform. I mean, go ahead and wiki cd ls, man and pwd. What's really helpful and what I found helpful is the -k flag in man. So any command usually has flags, which do different things. So man-k is really cool. Let's say I can't remember a network command and I need something like nmap, or I'm looking for something that is network related. I can do two things. I can go man-kn, and it's going to, I guess it's not installed in CentOS 7. Man-k, maybe I need to give it more apropos. Maybe I spoke earlier, but man-k L. Just need to check why that's not working. Again, I'm using CentOS 7, which is different from let's see if apropos net sudo update db, maybe it doesn't understand. And CentOS 7 is different. I should have started at CentOS OS 6 sudo update db sudo apt, sorry, yum install update db. Let's see if we need to install it. Does locate work? Oh, because I'm using apt-get installs. And locate does not work. Interesting. Well, CentOS 7 obviously has some differences, and I will need to find out what those are, and I will go over those in the next one. But man-k used to let you look up like the list of commands that were associated with networking, and it used to let you look up like the commands that were associated with like file manipulation or ownership manipulation, and lots of handy things. I will figure out whatever CentOS did to mess that up. I'm shocked that it doesn't work, which is fine. Right, and so like even a cat Etsy issue. This is fun because I'm learning CentOS 7 with you guys. Even an Etsy issue only gives me /s and kernel. It doesn't give. What it should give me is like the kernel and the information of the OS. Uname does work. It gives me EL7, so that's fine. Okay, so but we have said LS is our most important. CD is a very important one. If you see here, what I'm doing is I'm doing a CD Enya. Enya stands for home, or CD/home, which there is a Twitch folder in the /home directory. But CD will take you to the root directory en route, which is your home directory. If you were logged into Twitch, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to log onto Twitch real quick. I'm going to log out. I'm going to log into Twitch, give my user password, and I'm going to display my working directory, and that is /home/Twitch. So if you're on a user, CD/ will take you to the /home/ your username, and that's fine. But en route, it will take you to just the root directory of the system, which is fine. This is why you should probably be doing your administration from the individual user, but that's fine. Okay, so we've gone over ls, cd, and pwd. Very, very important commands, as well as man, in order to be able to kind of navigate in the use of the system. The last thing I'm going to say is that you need to go ahead and install, and I need to stop doing apt-get because I forget that on the VirtualBox. You need to do a yum install vim to make sure that you have the latest version of Vim. More important on an Ubuntu box, but pretty important on this. And yeah, use Vim, don't mess with Nano. People will make fun of you if you use Nano. And it does word wrap, so it's bad. You may have even want to have done this before you shut the VM down and cloned it, so that you have the latest version of Vim when you clone the machine, but can't remember everything. Once we complete this, what we will have done is we will have shut down, sorry, Freudian. We would have set up our first VM inside a VirtualBox and have a good working knowledge of how that works. And we've also gone ahead and shown how to clone that box just by right-clicking and clicking clone, so that we can set up a repeatable lab environment again and again and again and again. This way, in the next video, we're going to install Apache and show kind of how to use the basics of Apache, because it's probably your first most important piece of software to learn how to use on a Linux box. And so once we do that, we can tear down and we can start a new system and practice that we remembered how to do it. Very important for the intents and purposes of this instructional series. If you guys have any questions, please post to the YouTube comments. I think I'm going to upload this to YouTube, and let me know. And if you guys have any suggestions, and look for the next part in the installment, should be coming very soon. Thank you guys. Bye.